January 6, 2015, and this is a special meeting of the Princeton Council to set our goals and priorities for this year. And please join me. Oh, actually, Madam Clerk, have we met all the noticing requirements for this meeting?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. And please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard? Here. Ms. Crum-Miller?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Butler?
Here.
Mr. Liverman?
Here.
Mr. Simon?
Here.
And Mayor Lemper.
Here. And as everybody here will notice, this is a little bit of an unusual meeting in that we're all sitting around the table because it is going to be a more informal discussion tonight to set our goals and priorities. But we wanted to start like we normally do with comments from the public. I don't know if there's a sign-up sheet there. I didn't collect it. There is. And I don't know if anybody's... Oh, excellent. Thank you. So, Kip, do you want to start? And if you could just start by stating your name and address.
Kip Cherry, 24 Dempsey Avenue. I'd like to make a few comments this evening on the need for a consultant to assist the Transit Committee in preparing the Dinky Ridership Promotion Plan as specified in the MOU. The MOU refers to this plan in several sections under the title Preserving and Enhancing the Dinky Existing Heavy Rail Services. Under Section 3, it says, upon approval of this agreement, which, as you remember, happened in 2011, the university will work with the municipalities and local merchants to develop a formal plan to promote dinky ridership, including but not limited to discounts at McCarter Theater, athletic events, local stores, and restaurants. And under Section 2, it says, upon approval of this agreement, the university will work together with Princeton Borough Township to encourage NJT to provide additional dinky services, including off-peak hours and weekend hours. And under Section 7, it says, the university will immediately develop a public relations program in conjunction with Princeton Borough Township, including signage and other forms of promotion. The Transit Committee has discussed preparation of a dinky ridership promotion plan briefly, and one commenter at the last meeting strongly recommended bringing in a consultant. Without speaking for anyone else, I very much concur in this recommendation. In my view, the members of the committee do not have the expertise themselves to prepare such a plan, although I think that they have the expertise to oversee the development of such a plan by a qualified railroad ridership consultant. In addition, as specified in the MOU, the stakeholders specifically referred to in the MOU, namely New Jersey Transit, Princeton University, and the Princeton Merchants, are not represented on the committee and should be a part of the development of the plan. This is particularly true for development of discounts referred to the MOU, as well as for the development of enhanced signage, the development of ridership programming and publicity, and in scheduled coordination of other transit modes that can be brought to bear in enhancing ridership. I would hope that in developing such a plan, serious consideration would be given for the provision of free or subsidized parking. I know that sounds radical, but as an incentive to riding the dinky, which would have the added benefit of reducing traffic and reducing the production of greenhouse gases along Alexander Street. While I had no input in the negotiations of the MOU, I am assuming that this provision was included out of a real desire to get riders who might have left the dinky during relocation of the station to return, including those who previously walked, and also to entice new riders onto the dinky. We're in the process now of getting new numbers, but as of August, ridership on the dinky was down 22% over the period the year before. We need to make sure that these folks come back. Also, if we could persuade some of or all of those Princetonians who are now renting spaces at the junction, we would double what was the ridership in 2006, which would be a big step in sustainability for our town. In closing, the time is right to move forward, prepare, and implement a dinky ridership promotion plan. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay.
Thanks. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Kip, what is the Transit Committee? Which Transit Committee are you?
Marvin Reed is the chairman, and it's...
Freebie.
Yes, it's focused...
formerly known as the Freebie.
Right, and Jenny is on the committee, and it has had a full agenda, so this is only one topic of concern to them. They have many other topics, and I think that's an issue, that this needs a real focus.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I have another question. Do we have money in the MOU? I don't know if this is for you or maybe it's just for further research. Is there money available for a consultant for this from the university in the MOU?
It wasn't specified in there. I think one of the issues, because we've discussed this, is that this would, to make this work, New Jersey Transit would also have to be a partner, and it's not clear exactly how something like this would work, because they take your ticket, so it's not like you have a ticket afterwards. So just the process of it would be something where New Jersey Transit would need to be a partner as well, and that's a little complicated. So, but I agree with you that it's something that was in the document, and we should
take advantage of
pursuing
it.
Right.
And I'm sure that there are some funds. I mean, my impression is there might still be some funds left over in the MOU, but if there aren't, I would hope that the university and New Jersey Transit would chip in, because they agreed to, or at least the university agreed to do this from the get-go, and it needs to be done.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, Stephanie Chorney, 11 Race Street. Happy New Year, and thank you for all of your service. As with every new year comes new hopes and dreams. While I know the council faces old and new challenges each passing year, I didn't want to pass up this opportunity to share mine. As most of you know, I serve on the Princeton Environmental Commission and also as co-chair of the Sustainable Princeton's Waste Committee, where we have focused much time and energy on trying to reduce landfill waste in the town for its residents and business that generate and throw away their waste. We think decreasing landfill waste should be a priority for this town, and we hope you do too, both because it is a state mandate and is financially and environmentally responsible. As our town has gone through silver certification, let's continue our commitment to sustainable efforts to see real lasting change in this waste management arena. While this is a complicated issue with many moving parts, we have tried to break it down in our leaf and brush memo and our waste memo that have been submitted in advance of the harmonizing of the waste and refuse ordinance planned for sometime this year. We see many avenues to reduce landfill waste through increasing composting and recycling rates by, and I'm going to list 5 of them, pairing downtown waste bins with recycle bins, enforcing existing business recycling laws, increasing recycling and composting awareness through better signage, education, and increased opportunities to throw away your refuse responsibly, supporting a single-use bag charge, and leaving the leaves in place, especially on municipal properties and school properties. Offering these opportunities outlined above does not take away services, but redirects services and finances so that we are responsibly deciding what happens to the waste we generate. The goal is to pull as much of our trash out of a landfill waste stream as possible. Landfills are not a sustainable solution to our waste management issues. I know landfill management is not just a local issue, but it has stakeholders at the county, state, and federal level, and we're trying to address those issues as well. We can do better, and it starts with our own trash cans. No pun intended. Hopefully over the next few months, you will be hearing more from Sustainable Princeton and the Environmental Commission on these issues in an effort to help the town with its ordinance revision and waste management solutions. We hope to further discuss these issues on the agenda of a council meeting soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris?
This is so wonderfully informal. I feel very odd at the podium. Daniel Harris, 28 Dodds Lane, Princeton. I just want to follow up a little bit on one aspect of something that Stephanie has addressed. I do want to wish you all Happy New Year, good health and wisdom as you go forward. Many of us are eager to see Princeton Council pass in 2015 a new ordinance pertaining to leaf and brush collection. We believe that the current situation on the streets during high leaf season poses many dangers to the municipality, and I want to address the municipality's legal liability. I note that Ms. Cecil is not here, but this comment of mine is really a request of you to speak with her. As we know, the current ordinance, with its pertinent fines for violation, is not enforced. Leaf piles often extend well beyond the 3-foot stipulation, creating hazards for drivers and pedestrians alike. I should add that this includes people on bicycles, of whom, fortunately, we have an increasing number in town. Brush is often not cut to the stipulated lengths and is not tied. To the best of my knowledge, no fines are assessed, and so there is no reason to obey and do the proper thing in terms of recycling. Here is the issue which I, as a taxpayer and others, some of them in this room, formally request you to pose to Ms. Cecil, the municipal attorney. If there is an accident, vehicle collision, or vehicle hitting a person that can be determined to have occurred because of leaves or brush and the failure of Princeton municipality to enforce its own pertinent ordinances, what is the legal liability of the municipality in case a driver or a pedestrian or a cyclist initiates a lawsuit against the municipality and sues for damages? Princeton Council has the authority to decide whether to present this question to Ms. Cecil for her professional view, and we trust that you will act responsibly in this manner. If Council chooses not to ask for Ms. Cecil's counsel, then at least this citizen question and request will be on record. I wish to repeat that any sums the municipality might be compelled to pay in the event of losing a lawsuit are costs ultimately absorbed by the unwilling taxpayer. I also wish to address the cost of gasoline entailed in the current leaf and brush pickup program. I know many of us here are thinking about this issue, and this is a tagline, a footnote that may be useful. Current computer software now allows municipalities to track the mileage and thus the gasoline consumption of its vehicles. FleetMax is one such program, and it has been adopted by Scarsdale, New York, as part of its decision to eliminate unbagged leaf pickup at curbside. Scarsdale passed its resolution in August 2014. This software can be fine-tuned for the individual tasks performed by any given vehicle. Measuring gasoline per truck as pumped at the pump will not yield accurate numbers. As I have noted before, and I believe Steve Hiltner will possibly after me, it is essential for Princeton Council to understand the dollar costs of gasoline mileage involved in the leaf brush pickup program. Fiscal responsibility demands this understanding. We know that even without gas costs, current program saps the municipal budget of approximately $800,000, which might well be used elsewhere. I have also referred to the municipality's responsibility to control gasoline consumption, which is, on the face of it, a matter of public health for the planet. And so I ask Princeton Council to ask Mr. DeShield and his staff to investigate appropriate software. It is a matter of prudent fiscal responsibility to undertake the actions I have outlined for the taxpayer and for the municipality. And thank you all for your help in advance.
Oh, wait, can I ask you a question, Daniel? Why wouldn't it be accurate for the drivers to keep track at the pump?
Well, as was pointed out to me, it is because the vehicles themselves serve multiple purposes. And so you have to break down the function of any given truck according to what it is actually doing. And so you have to work by the odometer and clock that in for X number of miles per day, per
Okay, I thought you were talking about just tracking gas usage.
And then going down to the composting center where, et cetera.
So you're talking about more than just tracking gas usage. You're talking about gas usage per...
I'm talking about trying to get accurate numbers on the leaf pickup program, right? And as has been pointed out to me, the trucks serve numerous purposes. They have numerous jobs, only one of which is leaf pickup, right? The software that my friends...
right, never mind.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're so quick. I was pretty slow on it at the beginning.
I'm not an attorney and I don't play one on TV, but as the liaison to the Traffic and Transportation Committee for a couple of years, I can tell you that I've heard Sergeant Murray give an answer to the first part of that question, and it would be, I think, difficult to prove that the leaves caused the problem because the driver has the responsibility for being in control of the car. And if we want to pursue this matter before we start with the attorney, I think Sergeant Murray would be our less expensive choice.
Thanks.
If I may respond to that, thank you, Joe. It might be the less expensive choice to begin with, but it might not be the accurate legal solution. In the long run, it would save all of the municipality from undue expense and danger. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yes, you come on. And then after Mr. Hiltner, I'm going to close public comment, and then we'll do it up again at the end, just because, well, we'll go until 6:30, and then I want to make sure we get our full time here.
Hello, and Happy New Year. I'm following up on our presentation this past month about the yard waste alternative approach to save hundreds of thousands of dollars probably if we can figure that out, and also actually provide potentially better service for people. It does involve having roll carts, which I sent you a wonderful video on, which will inspire you all, I'm sure. 2 minutes long. And so I do want to follow up that I feel very strongly, and I know many others do also, that this year we really need to do something, that we shouldn't just wait another year on this. We did make, we contacted the mayor, I remember back in April, and you suggested we present something in December and follow up in January, so that's what we're doing. And so I guess that the proposal for cost-effective collection of leaves and yard waste and brush in Princeton is part of the record, so you have that from last month. I do just want to read something quickly about roll carts. Roll carts are not only the preferred approach for, and these are the 70 or 90 gallon carts that have a top, and I saw them using them right on Nassau Street for recycling today with a very inexpensive retrofit little tipper that empties them. And so it's happening in Princeton now, and we could expand on that. It's really so roll carts are not only the preferred approach for cost-conscious private haulers like Waste Management, but also for many yard waste collection programs around the country. Ann Arbor's program is most relevant to Princeton because of its similar climate, but also relevant are programs in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Durham, North Carolina, and doubtless many other municipalities, including Enid, Oklahoma, where that video happened. The roll carts with wheels, easier filling, reusability, larger capacity, greater stability, the bags tend to fall over into the sidewalk and the street, a cover to protect contents from rain, and the potential for large additional savings by adding food waste in the future. Ann Arbor mixes food waste with the yard waste and just composts it outside of town just like we do, actually. So that's a great potential to reduce the garbage by 30% there, and tipping fees accordingly. Council can do away with loose yard waste pickups for 9 to 10 months out of the year and still feel like the town's offering a credible and much more efficient service than currently, while stripping away all the negatives so well described by the Environmental Commission associated with loose dumping in the streets. One roll cart also filled 50 times per year would save 150 single-use yard waste bags. So these are reusable containers over and over and over, and the yard waste bags, you just have to keep buying them, and so if we're trying to reduce bag use, this would be a very large component of that. Just one other thing, if I may, is that okay? One other brief subject. I want to tell you that the Friends of Herrington Woods is now a nonprofit. We have, thank you. And iOS notified us rather quickly, which is nice. And so hopefully this year we will move forward with preserving the Veblen House and so forth. And we hope very much that you'll allow us to be integrated into decision-making about Herrington Woods and Autumn Hill Reservation, where we've done so much work, and hopefully be part of the Princeton Ridge group if you'll have us. And so I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
And that is, in those instances that you cited, are the roll carts individually owned by homeowners, or
Yeah.
are they owned by the municipality?
Well, I guess Waste Management probably owns the carts and they collect them. I mean, the township, of course, a lot of the trash collection for the township was private haulers with these yard carts or these roll carts. I would say, I mean, I've heard Waste Management say $50 or $60 per cart when they've talked about this kind of thing at town meetings, and I would say, so that might be $400,000 initial cost if the town takes the whole cost of it. I mean, a lot of towns, they charge people $25, $40 for one of these carts, and so if they want to use the service, they buy the cart, and they could buy 2 or 3. So it does end up, and I think in trash collection, you'll see that people are gravitating towards these roll carts. They aren't the same quality roll cart, and they can't be lifted mechanically, so I see in trash collection that we're moving towards these larger roll carts, and those guys are probably going to have trouble lifting those eventually. But I do see a movement towards the roll carts, and probably the individual would own them.
Thanks.
Thank you. I just wanted to did Bainey, you have a comment too? You can just come on up. And for the record, that was Steve Hiltner. So I don't think, so you just start by stating your name so we get it for the record.
Bainey Surrey. So I just wanted to give a little update to say that I'm working with PEC, and we hope to bring a bag ordinance in shortly. So just to let council know that that's going to be coming on the radar. I hope to have PEC try to get it on the agenda and then introduce it, so I can reach out to people ahead of that to talk to them about the bag ordinance, hopefully, and then have a dialogue about it when it's actually introduced. That's it. Did you have a question, Jenny?
Well, I was just going to suggest that ordinances are written, are in a specific order, and are you working with an attorney to do it, or what's the process that you're thinking about? Just bringing us the idea of it, and then we would draft it?
No, actually drafting it and bringing it to PEC, and then having PEC approve it and introduce it. Sure, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, if I may respond in part, you'll remember that some years ago, a group of us, including Diane Landis and Sophie Glovier, were involved in trying to get a simple resolution passed by both the borough and the township in their prior incarnations, supporting a bag dissolution campaign of one kind or another. And in some of my conversations with Ed Schmirer, then attorney for the township, he said anybody can write an ordinance. And it is indeed true. And what we did as a group was to collect a number of bag ordinances involving both bans and charges of various kinds, and as it were, collating them. And we wrote an ordinance, a version, and I think what you will see is perhaps a version of that, and this will obviously be run by Ms. Cecil and others, but its format is one that will not be unfamiliar to any of you at all. It also has the research in it derived from the SNAP program and so forth in New Jersey, so that it's quite pertinent to New Jersey in its reference to people who are struggling financially. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, good.
Is there a different process that you would sort of...
Well, let me talk to you afterwards. What we might want to have you do is come in, especially with something where there's going to be a lot of questions, and it might just help save time if you come before council, and we can have a more informal discussion that can help inform what the PEC puts together to bring back. So we'll talk about it. I mean, I think you probably want to do some legwork first, which it sounds like you've already started, but it'd be good, I think, to have a more informal presentation to get some feedback and get a sense of where council is and some of the concerns that there might be, and to hear if there's members of the public who have concerns to try to address some of those in putting together the ordinance. But we'll talk offline and figure out.
I just wanted to sort of give a heads up and then make sure that we follow whatever process the council would want us to follow to be able to just bring it.
That sounds great. Thank you. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to pass the meeting over to Mark DeShield, our administrator. I'll just give a very brief introduction. This is our third year of doing goals and priorities. It's been helpful for our past 2 years in helping to focus our agenda, because there's so much to do, and there's really a lot of great ideas. There's usually more great ideas than we have time to do in any given year. So this is an opportunity for us to take a snapshot of some of the things that we expect to be on the agenda, and to prioritize them, and also leave a little bit of time for what we know are going to be the items that are going to take a lot of time that we have no idea what they are today, because that's just the way life is. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm very excited tonight to embark on this process with the council. My goal this evening is to facilitate the mayor and council through a process to establish your 2015 goals. And as you're facilitated tonight, what I'm going to try to do is keep the flow of discussion going along as we move through this process. At the end of this meeting, it is my plan that we achieve the following things. One, we're going to identify 3 strategic priorities. These are long-range, major vision, broad ideas about the community. 2 is to prioritize goals and initiatives that have been identified by the council. And we're going to identify those as those that are mandatory, those that meet our strategic priorities, and those that are essential activities that we need to do during this year. Then we're also, at the end of that process, we'll do some prioritization where I'll ask the council to identify their top 5 priorities for this year. And this is not going to be the end of the process. What we will do is bring this back. Staff will compile all this information and develop an action plan that, again, will be reviewed by the council before we move forward. So just as kind of some housekeeping, just want to get everyone orientated to what we have. You should have in front of you a number of pieces of paper. The first, everyone should have a goal session outline, and that's just going to outline what we're going to go through this evening. The second sheet of paper you should have is the strategic priorities for 2015. What I did here, let me just step back for a second just so that everyone understands the process we went through. I asked each council person to identify 3 strategic priorities for me. Those were compiled. Last night, most of you received the raw data of all that information that you submitted to me. That is summarized in the sheet that you see here, which talks about the strategic priorities. We summarize them and put them under headings. And as you take a look here, this area here identifies all of our strategic priorities that were identified by council. And we'll be going through and identifying those. Next, you will have another sheet, which is the strategic initiatives and goals. And that goes from 1 to 12. Those are summarized here on all the documents that go along the dais here. And those are summarized there, and we're going to go through a process of going through each one of those initiatives. You should also have with you some colored tabs. You're going to use those to vote on your priorities as we go through this process. So before we begin, we just want to go through a couple of things. And the focus for this evening is to establish the priorities, goals, and initiatives for the council, and we're focusing on the big picture. We're not trying to solve or propose any solutions tonight, so that's important. This is really the start of the process. I'm going to go over a couple of ground rules just to keep us on track. We're going to try to stay on task. We've got a lot to accomplish this evening, and it's going to be important that we stay on task. We want to listen actively and respect everyone as we go through this process. We want to make sure there's a free flow of information and ideas that come from you. Unfortunately, time is limited, so I will be pushing people along in the process, but I want people to feel free about giving us your ideas as we go through this process. And the other thing is we want everyone to kind of work towards consensus this evening. The key here is we need to come to some consensus on these ideas, and we should have that in mind as we do this. And most of all, this is a process for the council. I want the council to enjoy this process, to enjoy it, have some fun. So I'm not going to just talk to you. I'm actually going to have you guys get up and move around a little bit, and I'm going to move around a little bit as we go through this process. So let's get started.
Is there a time you're expecting to end? Is that why we're in a hurry? Because we like to go to midnight. That's Joe's meeting. Oh, okay.
And believe me, we're gonna go through this, but it's a lot of information here, and I'm not rushing you, but I just want to make sure we hit everything that we're going to go through.
Well, can I ask a question? On this page, strategic priorities, let's just say we agree with all of 5 of them. Why don't we just, 6, I don't agree with the last one. But let's just say we all agree on more, I mean, why do we have to pare it down to 3?
Here's what we're going to do, because that's part of the process of prioritizing them. They're not going to go away, and they can be a strategic priority for us, but what I want to do is identify those things that are most important. So that's part of this process, just to identify things that are most important will help us as we prioritize things along the process. So,
I mean,
none of these will go away.
It seems like it's not, I don't know, I want to know why it's so important to spend time on prioritizing these things that seem like kind of no-brainers. We all want all of them. So why do we need to prioritize them?
What it will do is going to help you later on in the process. We're not, as I said before, what I want to accomplish today is we're going to identify your top 3 priorities. They will help us as you there's over 40 or 50 items here. It will help us identify which ones we're going to move first. We're not going to be able to accomplish all of these. By going through this process, it will help us identify what we want to do and accomplish this year. So they actually are all great. There was really a lot of consensus on what these strategic priorities are. So just because you're voting, these is my top 3 doesn't mean the other priorities aren't important. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of walk you through the priorities that were identified. The first one was to provide financial sustainability in the community. And we had a number of people, who identified and made some other comments concerning financial stability. One is to ease some of the reoccurring expenses that are in capital and moving those to operating. And the other one is to maintain a viable debt reduction plan. The next thing that was identified across the board, and this was most of everyone had this on their agenda, was to provide a safe and inclusive community. And some of the things that were identified included providing sustainable health and public safety, maintaining the positive direction of the police department, and providing clean and well-maintained Princeton community. Next one, major priority that came about is to provide a well-run community, and things that were identified included providing a government that runs well and connects with the community, provides excellent service, improved communications, succession planning, and managing municipal facilities and capital assets. The next one we have is to provide a vibrant and sustainable community. This includes maintaining the character of the town, history, vibrant downtown, neighborhoods, maintaining our neighborhoods. The final one is becoming more sustainable community by investing in new infrastructure such as biking, walking infrastructure. Go here, maintain Princeton's ethnic and economic diversity, and improve the aesthetics of town. Number 5 is to manage the land use planning. Things identified here included the consolidating and updating the ordinances for land use, incorporating financial impact analysis to land use changes to the master plan and zoning, and planned implementation of technology changes necessary to put planning documents online. And the final one is to encourage economic development. These are, as you can see, these are the areas. Now, what I'm going to ask everyone to do, and you're going to have to get up for this process, and then we can talk about it, is you have in front of you tabs. There's one that has 5, and there's one that has 3. And I want you to identify, of these major numbered strategic priorities, which one you think is most important to you as an individual. And that'll help us go through this priority process. And you have 3 votes, and you can put them all on one. You can do any way you want.
Before we start voting, can I ask whether or not it's possible to take the 6 strategic priorities that you have on the chart and collapse them? Because I think that, for example, provide a vibrant and sustainable community is not possible unless you have a financially sustainable community. In other words, you can't do all the things we're talking about under 4 unless we have financial sustainability. And financial sustainability can certainly stand on its own, but if you put in all of the things like maintaining character, becoming more sustainable by investing, maintaining and enhancing, et cetera, financial sustainability has to be an integral part of it. You can't do that without financial sustainability. So I'm wondering if maybe, if we take a first look at this, maybe there is some reduction that's possible by putting them together.
Can't we just do the exercise the way he planned it?
One thing we can do, and what I would say is they are, if you take a look at these, and we can have some discussion if you want to kind of move these around a little bit, but I believe you do need to have some distinction. They're all related.
Almost everything, Bernie, and including, I mean, you technically can't have a well-run community necessarily, whether you have the ability to. So I understand what you're saying, but I think this was already going down quite a bit to get kind of organized that way.
Also, some people, just will live on their credit card and don't believe in financial stability. I mean, it's not a high priority. I mean, some people think it's okay for debt to rise.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
It's going to be the overlap.
I was going to say, I think one way to think about it is just what do we want the focus of this year to be? It's not what we want to do, period, but just what do we want the focus to be?
Yeah, and if I could add to that before we start, I think it's also important to think where is the most critical need. It's not saying any of these are not important, but it's saying where do we need to focus most
Correct, and that's where this year, think of this year, and that's going to be an ongoing process.
This is the 3-patch.
3-patch.
This is the 3, yep.
I'm sorry, are we voting for the big set or the small set?
The big set. Oh. You can put them anywhere in there, but we're voting the overall.
And you can
And if you put them next to it, that's fine. It helps us.
You can put all your eggs in one basket, or you can split them up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
let's see what we have here. 1, 2, and 3. So these are going to be our top priorities for, go ahead. We'll be providing financial sustainability, providing a safe and inclusive community, and providing a well-run community will be our top 3 priorities. And all of these are also good. But part of what we're going to do through this process, all of these are good ideas, and they're all incorporated. As we go through this, you're going to notice they're all incorporated in some of the initiatives that you have throughout here. One suggestion I'm going to make, some of these here also can become initiatives, and we can just convert those to initiatives on the initiative side, because we did identify some of those. So now that we have our top priorities, we're going to walk through each one of these areas and initiatives that you have, and we'll have some discussion about each one of those initiatives, and then we'll start to identify them. First, I'm going to go through the broad titles and then walk through each one. Economic development.
Wait, Mark, let me just remind me again. These are all generated from us, right?
They're all generated from you.
Okay, I'm actually
They're all
trying to remember which ones I put in. You know? Well, there are so many are similar that it's hard to tell.
And that's what I liked about this exercise, and you all did it independently. And as you can see, everybody was really on the same page as we went through this process and looking at the same. And these are all great ideas, and they're all incorporated in all the initiatives that you talked about as we go through this process. So let's start with economic development. And some of these are individual, so I may need to ask for additional clarity on what is meant by some of the initiatives that you have here. So I'll be talking to you about that. Economic development, an economic development task force, number 1 being tourism. Princeton has a designation for shopping, eating, entertainment, and sightseeing. Improve the appearance of the CBD district. That came up a lot. That seems to be a common thread. It's not just once, but several people identified that as something that we need to look at.
Wait, does that mean that they want it to be a destination for tourists and shopping?
Yes.
To enhance it, yeah.
No, actually, the one that came up most was really improving, and that may be the ultimate goal. The thing that came up the most, though, was the CDBG and making some improvements in the CBD.
Okay.
I wouldn't categorize that as tourism.
Because tourism is a different ballgame. I mean, in some people's minds, it generates more costs than it brings. And so
we could have that under either one of the categories. It could be moved down to business. Why don't we do that? You have a marker? We'll just move that down to 2-1, 1-2, under business, local business. I see a little strange look and see what we just did.
I'm trying to figure out, are we trying to figure out what?
We're just going through all these.
Oh, we're just going to go through
Someone
them
made a
all.
comment, and it should be in another category, and I said,
I see,
that makes
okay.
sense.
Tourism's under business? No.
We're going to move that, just make an arrow down to there. And then 1.2 is business development, and that's the plan to attract startup and small and medium business-sized corporations to Princeton. And then we're going to add in, improve the appearance of the CBD.
But wait, what are we, I don't understand what we're doing right now. He's just going.
I'm just going through the list.
It's easier for you to follow on this because
I'm just walking down the list. That's right.
we're on the goals. Okay?
The next one is local shopping, and that's to work with the owners of the Princeton Shopping Center to develop a plan to reinvigorate the shopping center. Number 2 we have here is consolidation issues, and that's to prioritize and schedule the remaining sections of the codes that need to be harmonized. Next category we have is neighborhood development, and that's to decide on the direction of the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood. Next item we have is to review the recommendations of the Advisory Planning District Task Force. Then we have another major category, which is affordable housing, and under that, complete the work on affordable housing task force and review the recommendations for it, and establish a plan for housing rehabilitation. And under this area, there were a number of comments, individual comments. These are summarized that talked about finding municipal properties and the use of municipal properties for affordable housing. That was a comment that came across through a number of the submittals. The next item is parking, and it's to harmonize the parking and also to improve the ticketing and the payment system at the Spring Street Garage. Under historic preservation, review and update the list of historic properties and sites and determine the status of the Western Section Historic District. And under refuge and recycling, the issue came up leaf and brush collection in two areas. One, to evaluate the cost for increased brush and leaf collection pickup, and the other, to study the need for recycling capabilities in the CBD. The next item, this is a miscellaneous category, which has a lot of different areas. One was to look at the drafting an underage drinking ordinance, take a look at converting to LED lighting in municipal buildings. Next one is to seek a way to constrain our legal cost. The other one is to look at tree replacement program due to all of the storms over the last couple of years. The next one is to look at the development of an RFP for the River Road Solar Farm, develop a bike path plan, and then we had finance, and again we have same recurring issues that we had in our strategic, and that's to move the recurring capital expenses to the current budget, plan on a flat budget or no tax increase, review fair share payments to entities such as the university, review of possible resetting long-term capital spending targets. You probably can't see this at the bottom. We start on organizational development, which included implementing the police department's strategic plan, but then customer service training, best practices for meetings with the goals with the goal of making a more effective council and council meetings, conduct periodic reviews of the public safety statistics, and there's an eye there on looking at how we can best provide those services, develop and implement a plan to maximize the use of Click Fix, implement the use of GIS, look at best practices in budgeting and cost savings, support health department accreditation, explore succession planning, fine-tune the process for circulating the agenda and agenda items, making technology change to facilitate remote participation in council meetings. And then we had communications, improving website, developing style guides for communications. Received a lot of people identify communications and having a standardized communication format for the town, and that was one that a lot of members of the councils identified. Developing a municipal calendar. Weekly council authored op-eds and letters to the editors. And then our final category was infrastructure, was review the fire department space and equipment needs, establish schedule for formalized plans for PFARs, identify and improve cold storage, Mary Moss Park development, council-driven system for identifying and prioritizing capital projects, and establishing a capital assets maintenance replacement plan. So just kind of, I wanted to walk through so that everyone.
Wait, could I add one that I think that we would all agree on, and that is under organizational development. One of the things when we went through the process of hiring the administrator, we had kind of a grand plan of, setting some goals for the administrator and review, et cetera, and we never, just in the kind of end of the year hubbub, we lost track of being able to do that. So it would be maybe under organizational developments, 1013, sort of administrator, I don't know what we would want to call that, but we never got off, really, we never did quite as much as we had intended to do with the consultant, et cetera.
Right.
Goals.
It's pretty straightforward, an assessment process.
Yeah, that's good.
And again, this one I've run through all of these, you've added one. Are
just
there
have-
additional changes?
Well, I had a question, like, so some of these seem like things that council would be directing, and others seem more staff-oriented. So how should we think about those? Because it seems like some of them, it's like apples and oranges for some of these. It's like things that they just seem more something that would be handled administratively than by the council.
And again, and last time you went through this process, again, we will identify those that are going to be driven by council and as part of that action plan, and those that will be administrative.
Could I ask another question? Under consolidation issues, we have prioritize and establish schedule for remaining sections of code requiring harmonization. We could establish that schedule in about 30 minutes. There's really nothing in here that talks about the actual work of harmonizing them. So, I mean, we could, some of this stuff looks like it could be done very quickly. Well, I guess...
Well, we have a schedule.
Right, we do have a tentative schedule for sort of at 10 ordinance.
You mean it's too small to be a top 10 priority?
Well, I wonder if it should also include the work on...
It should also, we can actually add when we add to the bottom of this, not only the development of the schedule, but also the schedule will tell us which ordinances we will identify and
Right,
tackle
but
for
that's
this
the
year.
real meat of the work.
A further question, that is some of the things that are listed here are well underway and are going to occur probably within the first quarter or the first half of the year as a result of what we started last year. By prioritizing these, are we saying that, let's say, for example, the Affordable Housing Task Force, complete work of the Affordable Housing Task Force and review recommendations for implementation. If that falls off the first 5, does that mean that it's lower priority than other things and it does not get the attention? Or?
No, and let me explain the process that we're going to go through in identifying things. Step 1 is we're going to identify those mandatory items that we have to do this year. And that'll be the first step, and we'll take those. The next step we're going to do is identify those initiatives that meet one of these 3 priorities, and we're going to identify those. That'll be the next step of that process. And that will help us kind of pull some of these issues that you guys see that are kind of hanging to the side away. And then the final step, just to help me as I put together the action plan, will be you guys identifying your top priorities, and that's just in terms of putting them together. As you look through this list, there's most of this we're going to try to get to. There's some things just by the sake of time we're not going to get to, but we will probably do at some point in the future.
Could I ask one more thing? Could we move the appearance of the CBD to infrastructure?
Where's it now?
Well, now it's under business, we moved it under 1.2, but I really would support improving the appearance of the CBD, the bikes, the trash, blah, 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 tree wells, but not necessarily the vacant office buildings. I'm less concerned about that by a large measure. So I would kind of like the CBD to stand alone, perhaps under,
Well, actually, can I ask a question about
or
that?
maybe it's under economic development, but it's its own.
Let me ask the question on that. What are we going to...
You're going to look at each individual item. I just gave you categories so you could to categorize. Unlike this, we're going to go through each and individual items and look at those.
So the first categorization is what we believe ought to happen sort of immediately next year.
Correct. That we have to do.
This year.
That are mandatory this year.
2015. Yes.
Like, for example, the code harmonization, we all know that needs to
Harmonization would be
happen.
mandated. That's a great example. So we will start there. These are going to be color coded. That's one that's mandatory we need to do. Now I'd like to kind of walk through the process. Are there other ones that people see that should be mandatory activities that we should do this year and complete?
Do we get up and mark these, or do we just tell you? Or
You can tell us. What I'm going to do is we're going to have that discussion. You guys give me a consensus. We'll put it on the board. Do you believe that? And that's under finance.
And how are we, I just want to,
Wait,
go back
before you
to
go.
Bernie's question too about things that we've already started. So for example, the police department strategic plan, is that something we have to do given that we've started it?
It's going to happen whether we make it a priority.
We actually should identify that as a mandatory item. There's one thing we need to talk about in terms of mandatory. When I'm looking at things that we're legally obligated to do, and since we've started contracts on some of these, those are some that we should identify as mandatory items, because we've started that process.
Right, so Mary Moss Park would be a mandatory item
I read
because
that.
we've got funding and that process has started, so we need to move on.
Well, the fire department study has started.
Right, so we're going to do
Well, at least getting that.
over here. Mary Moss Park. The fire department, PFARs. And actually, I'm going to work backwards, and why don't we just walk through each sheet? And that might be easier. Anything on 12 that it should be mandatory, besides we've got the study of the fire department, and we've got Mary Moss Park. That's right. No, that's right.
I think PFAR.
Oh.
PFAR is too.
12.2. What do you want to make? Oh, you got it. 12.2. And 12.2?
I think also 12.5, if I'm reading it correctly, we have partially begun that by the establishment of the Council Finance Committee.
What I would suggest is, those that we say mandatory, there's some that we may have started, but there's others we've committed to.
That's
and
gonna-
identify those that
yeah.
we've actually really committed to.
Right.
That will fall under our goal number 1, too.
You say the cold storage, you've already used some money into that for planning.
I don't know that any of
But
that
we have
money
made
has
that final
actually been
decision on that.
spent. We made, has it? Well, I thought they were going to come back to us when they
We're actually going to come
spent
back
the
with
money.
another plan. I think there may have
I
been
know,
some
but we-
planning.
Drainage thing, big drainage work.
But again, I see those as not being mandatory, because council can make a decision not to go forward with that process. We've not obligated ourselves yet. And then, so we can then prioritize that. So on our next sheet, we've got 11 under communications. Anything there that should be mandatory? All right. The next one is organizational development. Organizational development, which is 10. Anything under 10 that should be, that is mandatory, we've already,
I think
I was actually-
10.5 is done.
10.5, the community needs assessment has been done.
okay. Well, we'll just put a, yeah, yep.
I didn't want to do it in a way to embarrass whoever.
Anything else under 10?
Has the health department already started?
accreditation? Where,
They've started the strategic planning and they have a plan for accreditation, but no, and that
Okay.
a lot needs to happen.
Accreditation for
The health department,
Is that mandatory or not? No.
just a good thing.
okay.
All right, we're going to move to 10, finance, 9. Anything under 9?
9.1 is mandatory.
Not the way it's worded.
But 9.2 is.
Yeah, we did 9 too. Well,
Well, that's the question. As it's read, it says that the 2015 budget planning with a goal for a flat budget. Is that what council, I don't think that's what we've kind of.
No, we have
The budget is mandatory, but that goal is not.
there's several strategically important things there, but none of them are mandatory.
Except begin budget planning.
Well, budget planning is different. That's already started, so it is mandatory, but not,
It's going to happen. The question is whether we're now saying goal of flat budget.
You should use your microphone.
Budget planning is going to happen. The question is whether we're going to attach to budget planning the requirement for no tax increase or a flat budget.
I wouldn't call that mandatory. I mean,
I wouldn't call that mandatory either.
8.5, the solar farm is on the agenda for Monday. So I'm not quite sure what we're considering mandatory, but it's underway.
If I can get agreement, I would say mandatory would be something that we've have contracts in place, we're really there. No. 7, the recycling? Nope. Historic preservation, we've started the process, but
I apologize. Can I throw something up on the list late?
Sure.
Under number 8, this was prompted by the tree replacement program that's listed there under 8.4. Public Works and I think Shade Tree have both been notified that we've got essentially an infestation coming that's going to kill in the neighborhood of 2,000 trees. The ash borer. So basically a plan for handling the ash borer infestation.
I think it's mandatory.
I don't know if it's mandatory, but it's certainly high priority. I mean, it's
8.7.
Yep. All right, and that's going to be next.
Thank you.
And it's going to be. And we're indicating that as a mandatory activity.
No, we're going to make it high priority, but
high priority, but not.
Did you make it mandatory?
No. All right.
No.
Anything in 8? 7, recycling. Historic preservation, 6. Parking.
Yes.
Could I just say about historic preservation, we have begun the review and update of historic properties. I mean, we had a meeting, and that's underway. And number 6.2, if that comes before us, that will be a huge time commitment, but, I mean, we don't know the status of it.
Right.
We can find out. Correct. That's another good point. You know, there are historic districts, Witherspoon, Jackson, I guess, that are contemplated. Right.
Okay, someone mentioned parking as a mandatory, and I'm assuming it's the harmonization?
Garage could be mandatory, too.
Number 4, affordable housing. I think there's anything there.
Both of them are. I think that both of them.
Well, right. I don't think they're
not mandatory. Yeah, I mean they're not planning on
the only. I guess it would become more. We wouldn't have to act on it immediately, but if the COA requirements come back, we will have to address that. But we don't have it now, so.
Neither of those are really mandatory. They're planning. Longer range planning than mandatory.
But, can I add one on here, too, about affordable housing? And I don't, especially if the rest of you feel that this is important, I feel like we need to have a council discussion on affordable housing and what our priorities are, for instance, low income, middle income, and how much affordable housing we should be providing. Because right now,
what's our goal?
Right, what is our goal?
What would be the optimal?
Or if our policy is we build as much affordable housing as possible, let's make that let's make that clear.
Well, that's setting a goal, right?
Right.
Deciding how much at what point would we be satisfied with the amount of affordable housing and what mix?
Right, and the mix to me is also important. That's something that we gloss over, but because I think there's a big difference between low income and middle income or median income, because and I think, for me, they're different and one has higher priority, but I don't know how the rest of the council feels, so I just feel like we need to have that discussion.
Do you want to add that as an item, or do you want to have the task force look at that?
Like establish priority and philosophy regarding affordable housing.
And we'll just put affordable housing priority.
That we should do that at the same time.
Well,
the task force specifically rejected that task.
Okay, that's fine, but I mean, I think that's when we should do it.
That comes to us, right?
When we get their recommendations.
Yes. Right, okay.
So what I did, I added that as affordable housing priorities,
Add
4.3.
add it to 4.1 then.
Look, I feel like we've got a decent list to, I don't want to spend too much time micromanaging the items.
3. Any items there? We've already identified the consolidation issues in 2. And under 1, any mandatory items? And I don't believe, so we have our mandatory items. I'm just going to walk through those for you. That's consolidation, prioritizing, establishing the remaining section ordinance codes and actually implementing them. Complete the harmonization of the parking ordinances. Study of the fire department space, formalizing plans for PFARs, and Mary Moss Park. Those are all our mandatory activities that we're going to do this year, so we can kind of take those off and we don't have to prioritize those. We know those are going to happen.
Yeah, can I just clarify what we're talking about under the consolidation issues item? I don't want staff to come away with that, or the committee to come away with that. Everything has to be done this year. Right, it's just we need to set a schedule, and then whatever we set for this year, we need to get done.
Right.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, we did circulate it a while ago, but the code committee has a schedule for 2015. But we'll look at it again and get it out to you.
I think really, mandatory is the schedule for 2015.
No, I think we want the schedule for every single ordinance that needs to be harmonized and what year that will be harmonized in, like the full schedule.
Yeah, we did do that. It's not, I mean.
Did we get every single ordinance?
Well, not the land use, but all the others.
But I think we need to do the land use that we're required to do.
Right, the land use is a different ballgame.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that needs to be done, too.
I do too, yes.
But we should resurrect our list and get it out and make sure that we're going to hit the 5-year mark, right?
One area we missed because it's at the bottom there, and that's the implementation of the police department strategic plan. So that's another mandatory item. All right, we've got through the kind of the easy ones. Next step, I want to walk through and identify each one and how they would fit in terms of our strategic priorities and whether they fit. If it meets one of these 3 strategic priorities, we'll identify it as meeting our strategic priorities. So we're going to walk through again, we'll go page by page in terms of economic development. First one being, and before we even start though, let's just have some discussion in terms of one item, because I know there's some discussion about tourism, whether that is a goal, a consensus goal for the township in Princeton as a destination for shopping, eating, restaurant, sightseeing, tourism.
I don't necessarily wouldn't make that a priority, but what is a priority, and Bernie and I started on it a little bit last year, we've got to manage the buses. Whether or not we do more to attract tourism is a separate issue, but we do have a huge issue, particularly in the warm weather months of, the buses that are coming downtown. And I don't.
Right.
We definitely, we've got to deal with that, though, don't you think, Bernie? I mean, I don't know would you make that a mandatory?
Yes, I think we've got to.
For quality of life?
We've got to deal with that. I think the question that really is posed there is whether we want to try and manage in any way the fact that Princeton is really a destination. It's become a destination for people in the region and for people outside the region.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's why I don't know that we necessarily want to encourage that, but that is definitely what's happened, and I think it's also driven out most of the useful shops, and there's more restaurants and more shops that people are willing to drive here to walk around and go to the shops rather than, so it's a destination rather than a town, less of a useful town downtown. But I don't know what to do about that, but I certainly don't, I guess what I could say is is there a way to capture any revenue from this? With, so parking, should we look at parking?
Can I make a suggestion? Since we're talking about, and I think there seems to be a big concern was the bus issue, and maybe we should make that, at least for the time being, the issue that we deal with in terms of this one, really being that versus the tourism. I mean, we can still keep that there, but I see, is there a consensus that's an issue?
I would agree with that.
But what about looking at parking meter? I mean, we haven't raised the parking meter rates for 5 years.
And again,
Well, Bob said he was going to look at it before he left, because do we know that he didn't leave anything on it? It was part of looking at the Spring Street Garage, because all the parking rates are tied into what the Spring Street Garage charges. And, I know we had started the discussion about the direction we were going to go with the equipment. I'm looking around for help.
I have a question. When you're looking at the parking ordinances, I know like you're starting with just the overnight parking, but are you also, because there's more than just that for the parking ordinances, and I imagine some of those are with the fees, so maybe we want to do it as part of the ordinance reviews.
The fees are ordinanced? Yeah, we haven't gotten,
So maybe it would be captured in that.
We're miles away from that, but.
Just make a little note, fees under the ordinance.
I think
that.
Managing the bus problem is really a separate issue, and it's going to come up again in April and May of this year, and it's going to persist right on through August. And, we had kind of an ad hoc way of managing the bus problem last year by having police out on Nassau Street redirect the buses away from Nassau Street. And Lord knows where they went. Some of them went to the shopping center, some of them went to Prospect Avenue, some of them went to all different locations around town. And I think we need to jump out in front of that, because if we don't, it's going to be on us once again in the spring.
So for something like that, for the bus, would that be under provide a safe community or provide a well-run community? It seems like it would fall under one of those.
Yeah, you could actually, and that's actually probably a good place to put that.
Yeah.
So I would, where are we at? Oh. So what we're going to do is we're going to add it here, just underneath here, so we have a place mark. So I'll just put in here bus, the bus issue, and that's, we'll categorize under strategic priority.
Priority number 2.
Priority number 2, which is a safe and inclusive community.
So how are you tagging that it's priority number 2 so that we can see that?
Oh, you're going to give it, you have a little color code here.
Yeah, so then just do this.
You're going to just do it as that and just put the number in the middle.
So those dots have a number on them?
She's going to write a number in it.
And I think the next one, the improve the appearance, is probably a well-run community. Would file under that.
Yes. I'm sorry. We're trying to get it organized over here.
All right, we got it.
All right.
All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the next one, improve the appearance of the CBD, would be provide a well-run community.
Okay. And that would be?
Number 3.
3. Next item is attracting startup. And again, as we go through these, and the individual start developing a plan to attract startups, small and medium-sized corporations to Princeton.
Number 1.
Actually, that's number 6, and if we're not voting for number 6, I'm kind of confused.
Well, right, I feel like that's a job for the private sector. I just want to throw that out there.
I think they need a little help, which is why I voted.
Well, no, a lot of communities do that. They attract it. Yeah, I think it's 1.
Right. I think some communities, but not with such high property values as ours.
Well, this is like... What? Yeah, I mean, I thought this was like, since we're so built out, we have to maximize.
Well,
I just think a lot of other people have a lot more incentive than we do, and they're, to sell those properties, rent them. It just doesn't seem like a good use of our time, but I'm just throwing that out there. If other people want to do it, fine.
Well, I think we have to think, too, what are our options? We're not going to go attract a big box store. We don't want a big box store here, and we don't control the rents, as you said, so I don't know that we can attract startup businesses with the rents we've got. It's not, might not be realistic, but if somebody has particular interest in it.
We've talked about an economic development task force, and I think
we've talked about it, but, we also do conflicting things,
I think 121 and 131 are very clearly part of number 6. And we emphasize it rightly or wrongly.
Say that again, Patrick.
Here's what we do, because we're not throwing everything away.
Say it again. Which?
What he's identified is that really falls under economic development, encouraging economic development.
Yes.
Which is not part of the top 3. But what I'm going to do is, just so that we identify where they fit, is going to put a blank sticker there so that it is one of the priorities that we identify. But it's not one of the top 3.
But I would still argue that it's part of number 1.
Okay.
But
what's the consensus of the council in terms of where that should fit? Economic development or number 1 being a...
providing financial stability, because if you have all of your offices filled and paying rents, you're collecting more taxes from that, you're helping to offset the residential tax base.
In terms of what we can actually do, I mean,
Well, the only thing we can do is, that I see, is offer a tax incentive, and that's what most that's what other towns do.
No, that's not true.
Like what?
Change the zoning. Yes. We can work on providing more infrastructure that supports the businesses. There are all sorts of things we can be doing.
we could have 24-hour hours of operation.
I think about the fact that if office buildings stay vacant long enough, there's going to be an initiative to convert them to some other use. In other words, nobody is going to be happy paying taxes on an empty building for a long period of time.
No, I agree with you. I guess and if you have ideas for how to do it, go for it. It seems to me like the people who want to rent those buildings are way more expert at marketing them and filling them. But
I don't think that we're saying.
I think the question.
We're not trying to identify and solve the problem. We're just, is that important
We
to us?
haven't had anybody come to us and even make a request that we do something like,
that's not true.
Yeah, no.
Improve our...
I've gotten a lot of people who would like us to do more in this respect. I mean, there's other communities in Mercer County that do it, that try to encourage it. I think the question, though, is it number 1, or is it not part of number 1?
And that's really a question. It could fit under number 1, quite frankly. It can definitely fit under number 1 if there's a consensus that it should be there.
They're separate.
Say that again. You should say that.
Separate than the financial.
Yeah.
Stability between.
Do I have a consensus on any?
I just feel oftentimes when we talk about financial stability in past conversations, we've talked about the revenue side. It's like we can't just keep talking about cuts and cuts and cuts, because at some point there's not much left to cut. And we found a lot of efficiencies already, and one of the big untapped areas are looking at other sources of revenue. So, but I feel like I'm trying to make the case for it, but I'm also like, if people don't want to put it under number 1, I don't think it's a big deal.
I think it's under
either way.
number 1, but if there's not, if it's not burning for people, it's not burning for people, yeah.
And here's the thing, part of this process will also be when you identify your priorities, if it's not high on the priorities, it doesn't matter which one it's in anyway. So.
Right.
Where do we have 1 or 6? Looks like we're at 1. 1? You got 3, 1, so we're going to put it under 1 with the caveat we understand it also fits under economic development. So you're going to put there number 1. The next one we have is the shopping center development plan to reinvigorate the shopping center. It's actually a very simple one. Strategic priority.
I mean, my sense, I think it's certainly been troubling to me that there seem to be a lot of vacancies there, but that's the new owners seems to have a high tolerance for vacancies there, and that's their business decision.
I'll add to the fact that it's not just vacancies. The parking lot has really deteriorated, and in a lot of places, the paving is cracked and heaved up. And I think it's symbolic of the fact that the current owners of the shopping center either don't have a plan to make the shopping center work well, or else if they do have a plan, they're not doing anything about it.
Well, they do have a plan. Were you at the meeting or was it you? We did meet with the owners, and they do have a plan on paper with green bushes and nice-looking parking arrangements.
Yeah, the plan, Jenny, that I saw was primarily exterior of the buildings, improving the exterior appearance of the buildings.
Well, they claim to have plans for renting the spaces out. And they also had a plan for restriping and changing the whole parking lot. So, they did bring us a plan, and they were talking about bringing it to the planning board, so we should probably talk to the planning department and find out what the status is, because it could be that they're moving ahead and we don't even know.
Can I ask sort of just a process question? This seems like we're starting to work the issues rather than just go through and prioritize them. And we're never going to get done if we do.
And the other thing I'm going to say, also understand that if it doesn't meet the strategic priorities, it's important, it can be an essential, what did I call it? Essential activity. So you don't have to identify it as a strategic priority. So we're going to go to the next one. And that would be deciding the direction of the Witherspoon Street. Strategic priority.
No, I don't pulled that off. We pulled off planning.
Actually, one thing here, this also talks about vibrant neighborhoods.
I think it fits under 4.
Right. I agree.
But we didn't vote for 4. I
We
did,
didn't.
but not everybody did.
Right, but he's saying that you could still go, it can go up under 4 and still be an essential activity.
I see.
Right. So,
Actually,
That's our safety
I would like
valve.
to vote for that one as essential activity now rather than waste.
There we go.
We've already started on it, and we will actually look very bad if we
I'll
don't.
second that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll third it, thank you.
review of recommendations for the Advisory Planning District Task Force.
I would say the same for that.
Same. And number 4, correct?
Yeah.
Affordable Housing Task Force reviewed recommendations and implementation.
Is that 2?
That seems like
No, that fits under 4, really.
or 2 or 4 it could fit under.
If we had, yeah.
Essential or strategic priority?
I think the word inclusive under number 2 is
I'm sorry?
Patrick said that he
Number
thinks the
2.
word inclusive under number 2 drives it in that direction.
Okay. Sorry. So we're going to make it strategic and number 2. Okay. The core requirements, housing rehabilitation. Ditto. That'll be the same. Improve the ticketing payment system for the Spring Street Garage.
That's a well-run community.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So that'll be number 3.
Just so you don't skip, you added the one here, the affordable housing.
Oh, I did, thank you.
To establish those. So-
Establishing the affordable housing priorities.
SP2, okay, that was
We're going to do that too, essential 2. All right, next one we have is the historic preservation. The update of the list of historic properties and sites.
We have an ordinance.
5.
Well, maybe, yeah. But it's like we have the ordinance, we should have a list.
But it's really about the land.
It is 5. Yeah.
5?
It is
So we're going to
5,
be
I
essential
think.
and 5.
Right.
The status of the western section, I think that's a ditto.
No, it's not essential, it's 5. We're going to wait and see what comes
I
with
think
5.
it's more, we're more reactive to that than
Okay.
proactive.
So we're going to leave that one blank. Refuge and recycling, leaf and brush collection pickup.
The code's under sustainable, but
So did it
Well, it also is, where was the one about health and provide, under 2, the provide a sustainable health and public
Or
safety?
even 1 if you're talking about the cost of it.
one here we have to talk about sustainable health and public safety, which I think can no, 2?
It's either 1 or 3. Yeah.
1 or 3? 1 or 3? We say 3?
I think it's 3. Yeah, 3.
We have a consensus for 3. All right, that's going to be an essential 3. And now we have the study the need for increased recycling in the CBD. 3.
Yeah, 3.
Maybe it's provide a safe.
I think it's more 4 because we could have just garbage and not have recycling. It would be probably easier.
I think it's 2. It's 2. Almost exactly 2.4.
2 point, providing a clean and well-maintained Princeton community. So we're going to change that to a 2. Which one was it? Oh, no, actually, that one, you're going to change that to 2.
Right.
Next one we have is underage drinking ordinance.
People might not know why I put that on there.
Well, that's, part of this is to have the discussion.
When we first were hiring the new prosecutors and judges, they brought up this issue because our ordinance, if it were changed so that underage drinking violation was an ordinance violation rather than a state violation or something like this, it would be better, it would be less of a record for the offenders, and it would also bring the revenue from the fine to us. And other towns have been doing this.
And this is quite different than what the underage drinking laws are currently in the other neighboring towns in regard to fines and so forth. But we have looked and we have met about 4 or 5 times, and the meetings were just, we stopped meeting, I believe it was September, and we're going to pick up meeting in February or March. And Kristen Applecat, who's here now, she's going to be one of the representatives from the university that will be meeting with us in regard to underage drinking. The underage drinking ordinances in other towns are quite different than what we're looking at doing here in Princeton. And all of it has to do with the eating clubs on Prospect Street, and it has to do with a lot of other issues that other towns aren't facing or do they have. So it's kind of complicated, but we are going to have something that we can bring before the council, hopefully soon. Hopefully this year, 2015.
Right, I mean, there are 2 issues.
Can we get it? Oh, sorry.
Well, because there's the issue that the corner house people are talking about, but there's also the fine issue, and then there's the issue of going into private homes. So,
Number 2?
So where would that fall under? Would that be the healthy, sustainable and health? So it's going to be 2? Convert lighting to LED.
Well, like, let's say that saves us money. Is that financial sustainability or is that stretch?
I think.
Like, how much of an effort should we be trying to sort these into the top 3? Well, it's a way to
I
talk
think
about
it's
things.
sustainable. It might save us money, but we looked at a lot of this. I mean, I know we did in the borough.
no, we haven't, the thing is, it's changed. I mean, in the last 4 years, LED lights have become much more cost-effective. So I put that on there. This is a very small thing. I don't know if it's worth talking about, but I think...
I did it in my house, and the best thing is you don't have to change the light bulbs for 20 years.
Yeah, they're just really great, and I just think we should have them everywhere.
Would that fall under the financial?
Well, so then don't.
Well, we're going to skip that one, you're right. We'll skip that one, and we're going to move on. That's something, just make a note to say staff on that. Tree replacement program due to the recent storms.
Oh, yeah, and for 8.3.
Oh, we missed, I'm sorry.
Continue the efforts. I didn't say it well.
8.3.
8.3?
That's probably financial, right?
Yeah. that's
One?
Yeah, I just meant continue at the prior. Yeah, it's good, yeah.
Tree replacement program?
Yeah, can I ask a question? Was there money from Sandy? Did we submit something in regard to money for tree replacement or something?
I never
No,
heard of
we never-
anything, any money for tree replacement, for lots of other things, but not tree replacement.
We got money for removal of trees, cleanup, and
Usually get reimbursed for what you
Yeah.
spent.
yeah, nobody's going to reimburse us for loss of, to replace a lost tree.
And that's a big priority for me, but it's under the, improve the appearance of the town. I think we've lost trees and.
Yeah, all over the CBD, we have a lot of
Big, humongous
empty-
trees.
There's a safe, clean, well-maintained. It's safe, clean, well-maintained community under safe, inclusive community.
We have the solar farm.
As Liz said, that's going to be before council at our next meeting, so.
Why don't we just, we're going to leave that one blank, and we'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
Bicycle path plan as an element of the master plan.
Isn't that the planning board?
Well,
It's the bike committee, but I think part of it is like they're going to need, in order to do it, they need to get a consultant. So it just,
But just to confirm, who owns the master plan document? Does the council own it?
No.
Planning board.
planning board, but the bike committee reports to council. And so it's a question of, if they're going to do this, they'd need somebody to help.
do they not have a
Safe and inclusive.
So we have a sidewalk, I mean, I don't want to get into the details, but we have a sidewalk master plan, which we know, because when we have a sidewalk come before us, we have no equivalent for bike
Oh, I see, not just the
infrastructure.
existing bikes, but, okay.
I
I've
thought
got
we
it,
had
sorry.
something, but no.
We have something from about 20 years ago that was never adopted and was not in a form that the engineering department can use.
I think it goes under 2, and I support it.
2?
That's fine.
No, 2, safe and inclusive community.
Not 3?
Okay, two, yes, I meant.
2.
2.
Oh, the ash borer. The ash borer infestation.
That's essential wherever you want to bucket it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I mean,
right.
that
We
that
should
can
mark
be 2
that
or,
as-
that can be 2 or 3.
Essential, I'm not sure where it falls.
Well, it is safe because the ash borer makes the trees brittle and they fall on you if you don't cut them down. It is safe.
All right, so
All right.
number 2.
And then we'll have the moving into capital expenses to current. That'll be 1. All the way down, 1. Make it easy.
Well, actually, I think we have to have a discussion over the 9.2.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right, and I think that was like the way I read it.
But we also, because we also want to start moving things out of our operating budget, out of our capital budget into our operating.
Put on your mic, if anybody's trying to watch this from,
I think that's a discussion that we have to have, especially when we're talking about reducing our reliance on the capital budget for funding our recurring costs, right? Is that what you're talking about, Patrick?
No, I think 9.4, the capital spending plan, is, we have to guide staff over which is higher priority, 9.4 or 9.2, because they're going to be they're going to be in tension with each other. And frankly, I feel 9.4, a sustainable long-term plan for how we should be managing our capital spending is what we should be prioritizing this year.
I think we should avoid anything that implies at this point that we're laying out an agreement that says we're going to have a flat budget or no tax increase. I don't think we can commit to that.
We'll leave it blank.
Yeah, I agree, Bernie.
I agree.
Okay.
9.2.
It's a good goal, it's a good objective to try and achieve, but
our long-term goals are even more important.
Well, no. I think what you're all saying is just that that's the discussion we have. That's the discussion we need to have. We may end up there, but we're not going to tonight decide that.
Well, and that was my point in raising the issue, is I don't want staff to come out of this meeting with the mandate to do it that way. You know, obviously, if it works out, great, but.
So if it's a discussion we want to have, shouldn't it be on there or not?
It won't be listed that way, but it's a discussion we can have.
Right.
I'm going to make a suggestion for 10.2 because I know that's already being planned, which is the customer service training. Is that being planned, Kathy?
Well, it's not mandatory, so.
Yeah. So we're going to just put that as mandatory because we are in the process of doing that.
That's great, Kathy. I'm really happy to hear that. I saw the email today.
Review procedures and best practice for a council meeting with the goal of making effective and more efficient council meetings.
I asked her to a couple months ago, and she was, it's supposed
3.
to be really good. I'm going to go
3.
with the first one.
We've got 3.
So let's see. Yeah. She did a good job. We're getting there.
To review public safety statistics.
Yeah, Jenny, you may, this may be yours.
I wanted to ask.
Oh, you didn't? No. I put it down because I think that there is a difference between what we do in terms of reviewing the statistics on each category of crime and statistics that say that this is a hotspot as far as automobile collisions are concerned. This is a hotspot as far as collisions between automobiles and pedestrians are concerned. This is a hotspot as far as break-ins are concerned.
But Bernie, is that something we should be doing as council or staff?
You know what, I was going to say, why don't we move this to a staff and we can talk to the chief about
And as part of strategic
moving
planning.
reports, right?
Well, that's right.
What Bernie's saying is that the council might be interested in this. And by the way, we do go over that at the traffic and transportation meeting as far as the accidents.
And probably the traffic unit is tracking.
I can see that might be a council, we might, in our police reports, might we want more information about the location of the violations that we get, or is that what you're talking about?
What we get that? Yeah, I'm talking about how do we apply our resources of the police department to solving problems of either crime or accidents in the community.
You mean sort of this comp stat stuff?
And is what we're doing at the present time the best way of solving it? For example, if we have a patrol car in every sector 24 hours a day, is that the best solution? Or is there a solution that says we ought to increase the coverage in a particular area at a particular time?
What I'm going to say, that's really, what I would say is I think that's really a staff function, and I think there is a way to get council some of that type of information, because I understand where Bernie is coming from.
With the strategic planning and our input, that's something we can raise with them.
Heather, I think there's a name for it that police departments have, something like crime stat.
Yeah, exactly. City comp stat was what New York did when they pioneered it. Yep.
So that one's complete.
No, we're not.
And I'm going to identify another one that I think is really staff. Someone brought up the staff can take care of, and that's really maximizing the use of click, fix.
I just was like, how do we take it to the next level?
Well, and a report on it. I would add to that I'd like to,
Quarterly reports.
yeah, or I'd like to hear, how it's working, how many calls we get per day, et cetera.
Yeah, and I know those reports go out, and we'll make sure that we can get those to you. The next one is the implement GIS system across all departments. Very specific, I'm not sure what that means.
So that's something that, David Goldfarb is always talking about that, and now I've kind of gotten on the bandwagon. And Bob Kaiser's not here, but the different engineering, and I talked to another person in the engineering department, we don't actually, we have quite a bit of expensive GIS software, but it doesn't, we need to take it to the next level to be really useful, and I think it would be worth it. We don't even have a single zoning map right now. That's one map of all of the towns. We have two separate zoning maps, borough and township. So I think I'm not prepared to make a good
I would enlarge this to say better use of data, like the Ralph Widener data and all that, better use of data.
Well, that's a little bit of a different issue. The specific technical issue here, I think this is something that should be referred to the IT committee, because frankly, the thing that I think you're telling us, I don't have any separate knowledge of it, is that we have multiple GIS systems in different departments that are incompatible and that don't use the same data, and that you can't share data across them.
Right.
If that's the case, that's an expensive waste of resources.
That's exactly right, but I don't think it's the IT department. I think it's, I talked to one of the engineers about it who's kind of interested in it and had a different idea of how to approach it.
But I'll just say that is something that, if we're going to coordinate it across departments, the only department that can coordinate it across the departments is the IT group.
Right, and actually, there's
of
representatives on IT steering from engineering and from all departments, so that might be a good place to start it, because it has to coordinate with IT anyway. Whatever software that any of the departments do, it has to coordinate through IT.
I'm going to suggest that staff and the IT committee, to kind of coordinate that. Now, the next one is to look at best practices for budgeting. I'm assuming that seems real simple. That would be one. Support health department accreditation.
What does that mean? Look at best practices for budget and cost savings. Whoever put that down?
I believe that was summarized, and I believe someone indicated.
That's not how I said it, but yeah, that was when I was trying to getting staff buy-in on.
Mike.
Getting staff buy-in on finding budget savings, maybe implementing a gain-sharing program.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was a good idea. I think that came up in a meeting one time.
A gain-sharing program? So if a department head says, I can save X amount, you let half of him keep half, or him or her keep half of it.
They do that in another town, maybe in Montgomery, or they did.
It's because otherwise you're never incentivized to find savings. Because you find a savings and it goes back to central office, right? So anyway, I don't know. It's not major, but.
I think it's something to look into.
Okay. Well, certainly it's something that I would say sort of that Kathy and team could think about.
Because I know a couple years ago, there was one of our neighboring towns did it.
It's what's happening in healthcare. They're trying to say, don't tell doctors to save money, but then let the federal government save all the money. You need to share it with the doctors so that they're incented to save the money. So anyway, I would encourage Kathy to think, the team to think about it.
Yep, that's fine, we have it. And then support health department accreditation, do we have where that should fit?
It's either
2 or 3. It's bottom or 2.1.
2.1, so 2?
But why? Is it?
It could also be 3, just about efficient and better services. It's about providing high quality public health services, like running the right kind of vaccine campaigns, and it's the core functioning of the department. So I actually think it's probably more of a 3.
But I'm confused. Are we saying there's a current need where we don't have the kinds of no, not accreditation, but are we not providing the services we should be?
No, it just sort of professionalizes the department more, and you set more goals. You get statewide recognition, and it just professionalizes the department. And I think consistent with Jeff bringing this new energy, it'll lead to better provision of services. To me, it's a 3.
That sounds like 3.
I think
the way you're
it's a 3.
explaining it. Is that a consensus, 3? 3. Succession planning. Explore the feasibility of succession planning.
3, it's
3.
listed there under 3.4.
We have fine-tuned the process for circulating the agenda.
My purpose there is simply to give council a chance to respond to agendas and notify the mayor if there's any issues or before we have them out to the public. And
So you mean in that gap between the agenda setting meeting and before it's public?
Well, right now, we're publishing the agenda on Thursday. We see it at the same time the public does. I would like some gap in there.
You used to see it before.
Yeah, we see it a little bit.
I thought we saw it Thursday and it was public on Friday.
You usually get it right after the agenda meeting, right?
No.
No?
No, I'm
Oh, I
sorry.
thought you used to do that.
Does the pub?
They get the agenda and the agenda packet on Thursday, and the public gets the agenda packet on Friday.
Right.
But the public gets the agendas on Thursday, right?
The agenda goes up, the agenda packet is.
Yeah, right. So they're seeing the agenda for the first time, the same time everybody who wasn't in the agenda meeting is seeing it. And I would
Okay.
like to.
No, I don't think, you're probably not saying that, because
Whatever's feasible. I think it is important, though, if people have something they want to say about the agenda, they have a chance to do that before.
Or would it suffice to get the copy of the agenda, like, right after the agenda meeting, that once you set the agenda at that meeting, then it goes out to say,
Yeah,
this is the...
if it's available. I don't know how long it takes to put it all together.
To me, that's the answer, because the answer is, we
That's
wanted the public
without
to have that time
backup
to
or
prepare.
anything else. It's really
Yes.
just what was discussed and talked about at agenda meeting. I mean, I don't think there's anything
The
wrong with
agenda
that.
meeting is at 8:30 in the morning. It's usually over by 10. The agenda ought to be available by the close of business that same day.
And it could be labeled draft agenda with the understanding a lot of times things happen in those few days.
So, all right, well, why don't we work
why don't
on
we-
something like that and...
Definitely seems like this can be doable, absolutely. And I don't know that we need to even prioritize that, because I think that's something we could just do.
Staff.
So let's not even do it, just staff.
We'll find a way to do that.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Because sometimes it's still a working document between Tuesday and Thursday. Because sometimes things get
Yep.
added and taken off between Tuesday.
Well, and that's kind of the point, is to be able to add and take things off. Yeah.
And I would say always, it's like I hope this has always been clear, if anybody ever wants anything on the agenda ever, to just let me know and I'm happy to put it on. And you don't have, it doesn't have to be your turn at the agenda meeting.
Thank you.
Next item we have is technology changes to facilitate remote participation in council meetings.
I added that one also, and it's near and dear to my heart because I travel for work.
We're actually working towards that. I think that's in the process with the technology upgrades that they're talking about for the room. And again, we haven't made a commitment to any of that yet, I don't believe, but we're pretty far along in that, at least
So
looking at the
that's
process.
staff and IT committee, again, we'll work that and then
Yep.
bring it before.
Staff and IT.
What? Yeah, once a month.
We have Joe's 10.13 assessment.
Oh, good. I almost missed that one.
Personnel committee, right?
Is that specific? 13.
You know, and I'm going to suggest, only because I don't know that fits in kind of the realm we have, but I think it's important, it should, as an essential item. I don't know how we categorize it, but I think it should be an essential.
Well, it's part of a well-run community, right? I mean, if we're doing our job right, I don't know, let's say manage. You know,
Assessment.
then, yeah, all the things we didn't.
So you want to do, what is that? 3?
Yeah.
We're going to do red, we're going to change it to
3 and essential.
3 and essential. Yep. Yeah, strategic, I'm sorry. Communications, improve the website. I'm sorry.
3.
It seems like everything under 11 should go into 3.
Yes.
Okay, done.
Actually, I don't particularly want to prioritize. Yeah, except for
I don't know who put that on there and wants to defend it, but I've got enough work.
I put it on there because I thought that there was an opportunity that has been missed in terms of members of the council communicating directly with the public through either the print media or the electronic media in the form of a weekly document. And you might want to author a document on some financial issue, Patrick, or an issue relating to public safety or something else. But if there's no interest in it, then take it off the list.
I think there isn't. I mean, I like the idea of it, and especially if people think it's a good idea, then, I mean, sometimes people don't like it when other council, in the past, there's been criticism for when people do it. Patrick, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think if someone was write a letter, I think it's totally fine, but, I mean, you're speaking for yourself and not for the council. Is that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Look, all of us already have the right to write a letter on an ad hoc basis, and I think we should use that as we see fit. The question is whether we want to represent council on a weekly basis in the papers, and I think that's a lot to demand on all of us, given what we already do with the rest of our tasks. So I'm just sort of pushing back on the workload question there.
Okay. We have the cold storage.
Number 3.
3.
Isn't the cold storage really a financial? Right.
Right.
I think the whole idea was to save money.
It's an.
That's fine. I don't really care where we put it. We're going to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Establishing a council-driven system identifying priorities for the capital plan. One. And I think that would, if everyone agrees, the establishing the capital asset maintenance replacement program.
1.
1. That would also be 1. Okay, we've identified. Sure. Sure.
Was that a duplicate? Is that there twice?
Which one?
12.7.
Review possibly reset long-term capital spending targets?
I think we put that down there somewhere.
Oh, that's 9.4 already.
Yes, it's duplicate.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
All right, we've gone through that process. We identified all of those. The next step, what I'm going to ask council to do now is you should have your 5 tags and identify those areas that are just most important to you. And what we'll do is we'll use that process just to help us identify and help kind of prioritize things. Doesn't mean any of this goes away. It just helps rank things.
And 5 of any of these?
Any of these.
Any of
these
that
along
has-
the wall.
Anything that has a sticker, I guess, right? Or
But we're voting on the individual items.
Individual items.
Wait, things that have a sticker?
Does it have to have a sticker?
It
Have a sticker.
doesn't matter, actually, but you probably are not likely to go with something that doesn't have a sticker, because we've already.
It's sort of a wasted
It's a
vote.
loser.
It's a loser. Okay, I need to look around more then.
Now, Dawn, what's the difference between the red and the green? One is...
So don't waste your thing on a mandatory.
Right.
Somebody's already wasted it.
Yeah, it was me. Sorry, thank you for pointing that out.
I would have done it.
I think it's important. Well, because I guess they're saying green is mandatory.
Green is
So
gonna be a priority anyway.
You might as well not waste your vote on it.
So like police department strategic plans, it's going to happen, so don't do it, okay?
already going on too.
Are mandatory. So your reds are the strategic priorities, and the yellow are the essential activities. Like some of these I know are going to happen, but it's not. Chips. Okay. I admit it. I admit it.
All right. Green means mandatory, so they're suggesting don't waste the vote on it. Right. That's all right. If somebody's purple does, just.
Red is the strategic priorities, so we're not.
Who's purple?
Me, why? What did I do wrong?
It fell off.
Oh.
All right. What about the one?
Wonder which one?
4, 5, 6. You have one here.
Okay.
Want to move that one over to one of these?
To elevate it?
Elevate it. Move it up.
I'm not sure how big of a task that is.
Yeah, it may not be that difficult. Put it in anyways.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't even go over there. I need more votes.
Oh, I like your idea,
Yeah, the one half isn't sticky, Bernie. Yeah, actually, now I do realize I add more votes. I need more votes.
Just a term, as you're doing this, just want to walk you through the next step of the process. What we'll do, based on all the information that we have here, we will compile it, put it together. Staff will then provide an action plan for those items where we have identified an action. There are some where we'll have to propose what actions that we'll take, and we'll present that to the council also. So we'll be reviewing this again. This is, as I said, the first part of the process.
I voted for the back to now, fair responsibly. Right.
We've definitely got a bias toward the low numbers.
There is.
I don't think it's actually.
Or you think it's because we started over here?
I think if we shuffled, we would have different votes.
Because we started, I mean, people used them up over here.
Yeah, in fact, Mark, even, yeah, I think so. I think we have a voting bias.
We have
I'm
what?
going to change my vote here.
Change the vote? Okay.
So you can ignore the note on here.
Okay. He wanted to move this.
I still think that's important, but I just think there's higher.
We'll make a note of that.
I put, you know, I voted for municipal calendar. I think it is weird that there's not one place that everything is, right? Is
Well,
that
that's not what the municipal calendar is, I don't think.
Okay, so
There
tell me
is.
what it is before I take
I
that.
think it's,
On the
I
front
think
page
it's
of
the
the
trash
website.
calendar.
Where you, like every possible
Oh, really? I was going to look at each committee and all that.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, we have one.
Oh.
sent.